Alright, so the Black Z is back. As you saw in the other video, we determined it needs 2 injectors. I have a pair on order that will be here shortly, so I'm going to go ahead and get this thing tore down, get the plenum pulled off of it, and get it ready for the new injectors. So it looks like I have everything disconnected from the manifold. Just gonna look and make sure one last time nothing's still attached, and then I'll go ahead and start pulling the plenum bolts. This is my first time doing this. And to be honest, I didn't do any homework, but it was actually pretty easy to get apart, surprisingly. Thank you, Nissan. Go ahead and get this guy. Alright, just to keep up with this hardware, I'm going to go ahead and thread it back on and get some shop rags and block off the ports to the intake runners, just so that nothing falls down into them or falls inside the engine while I'm pulling the rails and the injectors. Alright, so the rails actually have a crossover tube that has them mated together that does not come off. So I'm actually going to have to pull all 4 of the rail bolts and lift both of the rails out to access these. Actually, look what I found. Okay, so apparently it's not the injectors, even though I have some ordered. Didn't expect to find this, but it looks like a rat has found its way under here and chewed the injector wires. So this is going to be a lot easier fix than what I thought. Nice. Okay, well, that sucks, but that's good at the same time, because that means we don't have to buy these injectors. So I guess now I'm going to go find some more plugs that have a longer pigtail on them that I can rob, and try to get these swapped out and get this thing back together. Injector harness just chilling. Can't beat that. Didn't even have to go far to fix this one. Go ahead and get this thing back out of the way. Alright, now that I've made my long journey to get some replacement plugs, it looks like the DE injector plugs are the same as HR. Let me just plug these in and verify real quick. If I can get them turned the right way. Oh yeah. So the DE injector plugs are the same as HR. I have this DE harness. It's actually got a couple of pins were pulled out of a plug, so this is just a scrap harness for me. So this is perfect. I'm gonna go get my electrical supplies and come back over here and we'll start repairing the wires and replacing the plugs. Style clamp. This is what you would find like in a factory harness for where like a ground junction would go, or some signals are going to be tied together. These are pretty easy to get. I just usually take like some of the little white snow caps or crimp caps, whatever you want to call them, from the audio shop, and cut the cap off of them, push these little guys out, and they work really well. With these, you don't have to worry about the issue like with solder over time, the connection, being corroded from the elements and going bad and losing connection. These are going to provide a really good connection for a long time if you'll do them properly and seal them up with the heat shrink. Always like to double crimp them, pull on them a little bit, make sure they're nice and snug, they're not going to come loose. Now make sure when you're doing this that you remember to put your heat shrink on before you crimp the wire. Otherwise you'll have to cut it and strip it and crimp it again. I use this method on all the swap harnesses that I do as well, like on the SR, S13 harnesses where you extend the MAF signal wires. I use the same method, and I've had this actually clamps from the same batch of crimps on my S13 for probably 7 years now with no issues. So very proper way to make your connections. A lot of people like to use solder, but over time solder does fail, and it has definitely proven itself for that. Now make sure whenever you go to crimp these back on, after you've cut them, that you're crimping them on the correct wire. I'm just using the old plug for reference. I know on this particular one, this wire happens to be red. That's going to be connecting to the pink one with the blue stripe. And then this blue one's going to connect to the yellow with the red stripe on the other side. But I'm just going to use the old plug as a reference just to make sure. If you're using plugs from a different harness, they may vary in color. So just make sure that you got it on the right side. Another thing I want to add, since I'm in this area with the fuel rail and the injectors, splicing these wires, obviously I'm using a lighter for the heat shrink, which is what people are most often using. If you have removed the injectors or the rails or have any fuel spilt up here, obviously please do not use a lighter. It may be a good idea to get it cleaned up or use a heat gun or something like that, or maybe just tape it if you're in a situation where you're not able to clean the fuel and vapor out. This could definitely start a fire, and it could definitely be very bad if it did so. But in this case, I haven't removed the rails, I haven't removed the injectors, I don't have any spilt oil, any spilt fuel, so I'm not at any risk of catching this thing on fire. Alright, just to give them a little extra weather protection, now that I've got them crimped and heat shrinked up, I'm going to go ahead and just put a little tape over them as well. Just give them a little bit extra protection. Alright, so now that I have them repaired, I'm just going to go over here. Just going to look over the flange here, make sure there's not any dirt or sediment where the gasket has to seal off. And then I will remove the rags and reinstall the plenum. Alright, so we have successfully converted our 4-cylinder 350Z back into a 6-cylinder. So, still have an exhaust leak to fix on this thing. Just a few other little small things, but this was the major issue that was keeping it from being drivable. I think Tyler's going to use this thing for a daily for a little while. We've got to do some maintenance on his track car and a little more maintenance on his Tahoe. So, but turns out it wasn't the injectors, it was just a few wires that I was able to fix without actually spending any money. So that's good. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time.